Good morning, Happy Valley, and welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast on pennstate.rivals.com. I'm your host, Richie Schnyderite, and joined, as always, by Joey Klender, our wrestling analyst. Joey, before we even get to the Indiana match this weekend, let's do a quick recap of that Oregon State match. Penn State ended up winning 36-3 in the duel. There were some interesting matches, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bo Bartlett and Cleveland Belton was a really tight match. I think we were all pretty surprised by that, but Belton, the tough kid, took him into a sudden victory and actually was in on a leg attack, and Bartlett ended up countering it and getting the takedown and getting the win. So he got out of there with a tight one, and then Levi Haynes had a tight match, 10-8. So a couple surprises there, and then obviously we saw Bernie Truex at 184 going on to Trey Munoz, who was no slouch. He was an All-American last year. So, a couple surprises from the Oregon State match. Not too sure. Maybe it was the travel. I know Cale Sanderson said that it could have been the traveling that did it. They had a couple guys on the team that hadn't really had a lengthy road trip like that before. So, not sure if that really played a factor or anything else, but at least Bo and Levi were able to get out of there with wins. So,
Now, do you think there's any room for concern, considering I know technically two of the guys you mentioned just won, but Bernie did end up losing. Is there any concern about that? Or
no, not necessarily.
All three, I guess.
No, not necessarily. I think Oregon State, the environment there was awesome. The gym was packed. They had the home gym advantage, if you want to call it that. I think it was just tough guys that were ready to compete against. They knew Penn State was coming to town and they wanted to put on a show, and they knew that they had an opportunity to kind of make some noise, and they came ready. So in terms of Bo and Levi, no, I don't think it's too much concern, and I don't think even Bernie's too much of a concern. I just think that Trey Munoz, even though he was ranked lower than Bernie was, I think that. I think that match probably, if they were to wrestle 10 times, Bernie might win 6 of them. I just think Munoz is a really good kid. He's an All-American, like I said. I'm not overly concerned with Bernie's performance. I just think it was Munoz came ready to wrestle and out-wrestled him. So,
yeah, for sure. Also, Tyler Kasak had a big upset over Nash Singleton. I know Tyler wasn't ranked, but how big of an upset would you consider that to be?
I'm going to be honest with you. I think Kasak's that win probably locked him up as the guy at 149. It's tough because you see these guys who are in the lineup and they're ranked kind of low. Like a perfect example of this is Mitch Mesenbrink. He goes out against the number 10 kid ranked number 12 and puts on a freaking show and takes the guy. So, Kasak, I think he just doesn't have the ranking because he is the fill-in but they've been kind of up in the air with that weight, the same with 25. And I think for the most part, I would imagine that those conversations were probably over. They probably found their guys at those 2 weight classes. And I think Kasak's obviously probably a top 10 guy in the country, especially based on how he wrestled last weekend. And, hopefully we see him again this weekend. Same with Braden Davis. And these guys can start to climb their way up the rankings. And, but I think that the room is just so deep that a lot of the guys who don't have starting spots are probably top 10, top 15 kids in the country. Most of them, at least.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now, this weekend's a big one. Sunday, number 21, I believe they are. Number 21, Indiana, comes to town. They're 3-0 right now. Could be 3-1, could be 4-0 heading into that match on Sunday as they face off against Rutgers tonight, Friday night. But just give me an overall quick summary of what you think about this Indiana team this year. I know they got a decent amount of ranked guys.
Yeah, they got Dan Fangaro. He's actually from Columbia. He's a transfer. He's going to wrestle Bo this weekend, and I think that'll be one of the better matches. I'm a little upset that we're not going to see the Carter Strachey, Darnell Washington next chapter of that saga. That's always been pretty chippy and has always provided some fireworks. Washington's, I believe, the last guy to beat Carter Starachi. I think it was 2 years ago, and last year they had a couple matches and they were definitely spirited. So doesn't look like he's going to be in the lineup tonight either against Rutgers, but he's not listed on either the lineup for tonight against Rutgers or Sunday versus Penn State. So not sure what the deal is there.
Gotcha.
Not sure if he's dealing with injury or if he's dealing with maybe just rest or anything going on. But he did wrestle late last year in 2023. So he has wrestled this year. He's just not on the lineup. So I'm looking to see a lot of the normal guys go out there and take care of business, especially in Rec Hall. And I think that Penn State could easily win 7 or 8 of these matches.
Yeah, for sure. Now, just go one by one with the weight classes as we always do. 125, Braden Davis, undefeated, 9-0, and could potentially be going up against a fellow freshman, Blaine Frazier, who is 6-10, or Michael Spangler, who's 8-5. Do we know? Right. Do we have an idea of who he's going to go against?
I'm actually not too sure. I'm not sure who started in the past, to be completely transparent with you. I think it's kind of up in the air. They're just going to go with who's hot. But Davis has one more match before they have to pull his red shirt. He can wrestle one more time. So I'm excited to see that, what the decision is. Obviously, we're pretty sure that Davis is probably going to be the guy at 25. He's 9-0. Right. And he's 9-0. He's a true freshman. He's put on a couple really good performances so far, but Penn State is going to have to pull his red shirt after one more match. Kasak has 2 more matches for what it's worth. So, but yeah, I think Davis is probably the guy there, and whoever he wrestles, I'm expecting him. But when he's looked really, really good, and he's just gotten better every week. So, I'm looking forward to seeing him wrestle this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Now, let me ask you this before we move on. What the hell has the kid got to do to get ranked? Like, he's 9-0. He's had some pretty big wins. Like,
I'm actually not sure. I mean, I guess I would imagine, they have a really tough span of their schedule coming up. He's going to be really tested soon, and Big Ten with the Big Ten duels coming. So hopefully, maybe this weekend, if he gets a major or something like that, maybe they'll throw him in there. But I'm not sure what he's going to have to do, but he's put on some really good performances. Like you said, he's 9-0. He should have a number next to his name within the next few days, hopefully. So
I mean, I'm not asking for like much. I'm not asking for number 1, but like 25, 23, something like that, maybe. But
right. Well, we see Mesenbrink still at 10, so I mean, I think he's much better than 10.
I feel like they hesitate so much with freshmen for some reason, but whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
133-pound matchup: Aaron Nittany Versus Caden Brooks. Caden Brooks graduate, 7-5, and Aaron Nittany 6-1. What are we thinking here? I'm assuming probably just Penn State lineup for the most part.
For the most part, yeah. Nittany's only got the 1 loss, and it came to Crookham, who unfortunately was supposed to have the rematch against Vito Rugel this weekend, who he beat at the early season tournament. But from what I understand, Vito's not wrestling. So, Nittany's looked really good. He didn't give up a point last weekend. I'm looking for him to go out and have a good performance and start to build some momentum as some of the bigger duels come up.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so right now I think we're looking at 2-0 for Penn State right now, or if we're going by matches. But 141 is a little bit of a better matchup. Bo Bartlett versus Dan Fangaro. Dan you said he's a transfer, I believe?
Yeah, he came from Columbia.
Yeah, from Columbia, New Jersey native. 15-1 on the year, and Bo is 9-0, obviously.
Yeah, Bo obviously had that tight match last weekend, and I would imagine this is probably going to be one of the closer matches of the duel. I don't think it's going to be close, but I think that, Fangaro's a good wrestler, and I'd like to see how Bo kind of bounces back from the performance last weekend. I would imagine he was a little disappointed with his performance, but we'll see. We'll see how he comes out. But yeah, I'm taking Bo in that match, but I'm excited to see how he comes back because, I mean, it was a little surprising to see him have such a close match last weekend.
Yeah, no, for sure. Speaking of last weekend a little bit too, Tyler Kasak at 149 had the upset. Can he pull it off again? And are we assuming it's going to be Kasak again? Because they did also list Davis Evans in the preview.
Yeah. They've listed Evans in, I believe, all of the press releases so far. Kasich seems to be the guy. He has 2 more matches before they can pull his red shirt. If we're going to put the strongest lineup out there, I think you have to go with Kasich just based on performance alone. I believe Evans wrestled against Hofstra and didn't have a great performance. I would expect Kasich to go out there, and it's another chance for him to put his name on the map. Graham Brooks is ranked 14th, and this has got an 11-4 record. So, yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to put the best lineup out there, I think it's pretty obvious and logical that you're going to go with Kasich. So,
yeah,
that'll be a good test. I mean, I think the competition is only going to get more difficult as the year goes on. So, it's probably good to keep him in the lineup, keep him fresh, and keep the momentum going as he's put on a couple really, really good performances early in the year. So,
yeah, and it'd be nice to see him pull off back-to-back upsets. That'd be
for sure.
cool.
Yeah,
pretty neat to see actually too. But moving on, 157, number 1 Levi Haynes is going to go against unranked Nico Bolivar out of Illinois. Looking, Nico is 10-9 on the year, and he's had his struggles over the past couple of years. I'm looking at in terms of record, but
yeah,
I think Levi just dominates. I guess
I would think so. You know, Levi also had a tough match last weekend and had to really grind out a victory, but you know, it could have been a travel thing. It could have been a number of things. I'm not really going to speculate too much, but yeah, would imagine Levi goes out there and puts on a good performance and gets back on track.
Yeah, for sure. 165 pounds. Mitch Messenbrink, 10-0, is going against number 23 Tyler Lillard. I'm looking now. He redshirted last season, but he still managed to have a 13-9 record, if I read that correct. And he had a crazy high school record, 129-15 in high school. Do you think this one's gonna be a little closer than people think?
I don't think so. Mitch has come out and just been an absolute powerhouse, and he's been a great way to kind of kick off the second half of the duel. Carter Starachi called him a psycho, I believe, which is pretty unbelievable considering Carter Starachi and how good he is. He called Mitch Messenbrink a psycho. You know, Mitch went out last week as the 12th ranked guy and beat the 10th ranked guy and teched him. I don't see him having a close match until we get to Big Tens and get to NCAAs. The guy's just it's just fun to watch him. I mean, he's just a great wrestler. He's quickly become probably my favorite guy in the lineup to watch. I really look forward to getting Mitch Messenbrink out there because he's just he's got so many attacks. He's so solid technically. He's just really fun to watch, and I can't wait to see what he does in terms of this freshman campaign. I don't think it's out of line to think that he could win it all. He's just incredible. I'm just very impressed with him. And, you know, when you're at 65 and your partner's at 57 and 74 and 84, you know, Levi's number 1 in the country. Carter's number 1 in the country. Bernie's number 5 in the country. Even if he wrestles with Brooks, he's number 1 in the country. You know, he probably rolls with David Taylor, I'm sure, if he's in the room. There's just so many great names around him. And I think that his performances on a week-to-week basis are really showing how crucial it is to have good training partners and how deep that Penn State room is. And, I mean, I'm just over the top impressed with Mitch Messenbrink thus far. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see him wrestle every time he goes out. And, yeah, I think this weekend's going to be a continuation of that. So,
yeah, quite the compliment there. Potential to win it all as a freshman. That would be something.
Yeah, he is really something. I'm really excited to see what he does this year. So,
yeah, no, of course. 174 pounds, number 1 Carter Starachi, you just mentioned, is going up against either Robert Major or Magnus Kakan. I don't know how to pronounce that at all, but yeah, definitely. There seems like the Indiana's having some issues at 174 right now, or trying to decide who to go with at 174.
Yeah, it just kind of seems like whoever goes out there is in for a world of hurt. Carter's just been nonstop this year, and he's just been pretty much untouchable. You know, I'm like I said previously, I'm really disappointed that Washington's not going to be out there because I actually texted my dad earlier this week and I said I was really excited for that matchup, and then I get the PR and his name's not on it. So I hope he's okay. I really hope that he's back for the postseason and we get to see that at least a couple more times. So yeah.
Next up, we have Bernie Truax, who we just talked about before, ended up losing last week. Going up against Roman Rogotsky, who is a South Dakota State transfer and actually posted a pretty decent record there last year at 17-8 at 17-8 last year at 184 pounds. Do you think Bernie can get back on track here?
Yeah, I do. Bernie had a tough match last week. Munoz is no slouch, All-American, very good kid. I think I think he is going to continue to develop. I just think that he has a couple things that he needs to work on to just get better and score more points. And, I'm not at all worried about him. I think he's going to be more than fine. He's got good partners in the room. He's surrounded by a lot of good guys. I just think that maybe he needs to just kind of get the momentum going a little bit more and go out and just be a little more assertive and a little bit more confident in his leg attacks and stuff like that. But I'm not at all worried. I think he'll get right back on track this week.
Okay, awesome. 197, Aaron Brooks, number one in the nation versus Gabe Solers, a freshman out of Mater Dei. Is there really, you think Brooks probably just runs away with this one for the most part?
For the most part, yeah. It's tough to bet against anybody in the latter half of this lineup right now, just based on how everybody's wrestling. Especially Brooks. Brooks and Starachi are just the two, they just seem like they're pretty much the perennial and just overwhelming favorites at basically any weight class. I would have to take Brooks. I don't think I'm really ever going to bet against him. I guess we'll see what happens with our boy AJ Ferrari at Iowa, but I don't think anybody.
We could talk about that later if you want. What a mess. Last but not least, heavyweight. It's Kirk, number one again. Is going up against Nick Willem. Nick's making the jump to heavyweight this season. He's previously wrestled at 197. I can't imagine you saying anything other than this is going to be a complete beatdown.
It's probably going to be, Kirk's world, and everybody else is just living in it for now. He's looked really good this year, and that 5-0 record doesn't even reflect the All-Star meet where he just had a dominating performance against Hendrickson, who's number 2. And granted, Hendrickson might have been kind of nursing an injury, but it's hard to believe that he would wrestle in an exhibition match if he was that hurt. So.
That's very true.
And it doesn't look like Gable Stevenson's going to be returning to Minnesota this year. So, I think Kirk's looking like he's in good shape moving into the latter part of the year. So,
yeah, awesome. So it should be a pretty I shouldn't say exciting, but it should be just a good home match to start Big Ten conference duels. But this one's going to be on BTN Plus, I believe, if I'm correct.
I think that's right. At 1 o'clock.
1 p.m. Rec Hall, BTN Plus. Anything else?
Oh, it's on.
Thoughts on?
You're right. It is. You're right.
Yeah, BTN Plus. Any final thoughts on this match before we move on to something else?
No. With Davis running low on his redshirt appearances before they have to pull it, and same with Kasak. I guess we'll see what happens going forward, but I would imagine this is probably going to be the lineup for the remainder of the year.
Awesome. You mentioned it before. I wanted to talk about it a little bit because there was some interesting news over the past, I don't even know, 24 hours, I guess, or we could extend that a little more because it sounds like, well, I shouldn't say it sounds like, Gable Stevenson, you just mentioned, is not going to be wrestling this year. So does that lead Kirk just to be the overwhelming favorite?
As of right now, yes. Hendrickson is 12-0 and he's still ranked number 2. But just based on how Kirk dominated him at the All-Star match, I just don't see anybody else. I don't see anybody else that I'd want to put money on. But anything can happen in the national tournament. People hit people hit their stride at the right year. I mean, we've seen it numerous times. We saw Ronnie Perry do it a couple years ago with Lockhaven, and then the kid from West Virginia, I'm blanking on his name right now. He was a Pennsylvania kid at 125. He made the finals. I don't even think he was seeded. But, we see things happen all the time. But I think Kirk's kind of come into the year with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. He's just performed super well over the past couple of years and just kind of hit hammers. Mason Paris or whoever. This year, it's really his weight class to lose, so I don't think he's going to really take any sort of chances with that, and I just see him winning it. So,
yeah. And then talking about Brooks a little bit, I know he's probably also the overwhelming favorite, but in terms of his weight class, you mentioned it before, AJ Ferrari. It sounds like I think Brands came out yesterday and said they will not be adding the Ferrari brothers, so I think that's almost officially official.
Yeah. Brands came out the other day and said that nobody will be joining the team in terms of the spring semester as of right now. I believe he said so. I would imagine
it leaves it open.
It leaves it open, but it just seems like maybe they're. The thing is if Ferrari doesn't wrestle this year, he still has 3 years of eligibility. So. I don't think there's really any reason for them to rush him. And I'm not saying that Ferrari doesn't think he can beat Brooks. I'm not saying that he's not joining the team because of Brooks. Definitely not saying that at all. But I think that Ferrari would probably just benefit if he just joined the team in the fall and kept the extra year eligibility, used the 6 or 8 months until, just to get better and get in that room. And I mean, the guy put up a thing last week that he wants a Ferrari, not a BMW for his NIL deal or something. So
I saw that.
Who even freaking knows what's going to happen with that guy, man? The guy's just hilarious, if you want to say that. But
that's one way to put it.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess we'll see what ends up happening with him. I think that from what the podcast he was on earlier this week, he said that the Iowa fans weren't super friendly to him, and
because you flipped him off.
Apparently, this all happened before he got flipped off.
Oh,
Apparently, he was called every name in the book related to his now dropped charges from Oklahoma.
Yeah,
and
a lot of question marks there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested to see where the guy lands. To me, he's just he doesn't fit the Iowa bill to me. I've always thought that the Iowa guys are just not super flashy and just kind of all business and not a lot of play. And I think that that's kind of how that program's always been run, at least in my understanding. And when they even have had remotely any issues, the guys on that team have been dropped. I can think of Seth Gross. I can think of Colby Covington. I can think of quite a few other names that got into a little bit of trouble at Iowa and weren't there anymore. And I just think that maybe Ferrari might be better off at a program that maybe is a little more lenient and a little more his style.
The WWE kind of.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but
that NIL deal with them.
I
don't know.
I just am not sure how great of a fit it is. At 90 for him at 97 at Iowa, but 97 is an interesting weight class. Trent Hidlay, he's a big one. I mean, he is a tough kid. And he always presents a challenge for anybody. Both the Hidleys were always that way. I think a lot of Penn State fans can think back to a couple years ago with his brother Hayden and the match in the semis with Jason Nolf that was very controversial. Michael Beard's another one. He's ranked 9th. He really put on a show when he wrestled against Penn State earlier this year. Wasn't against Brooks, but there's a lot of good names in that weight class, and so. But it seems like we're not going to hear from AJ Ferrari this year.
Yeah, I think that's for the better, to be honest with you. Anyway, after seeing that tweet, I'm over it. You lost me there.
Yeah.
I mean, you lost me beforehand, personally, but then once he did that, I'm like, nope, we're done. See you later.
Yeah, definitely an interesting guy.
Again, that's one way to put it. I don't know if I have a couple other adjectives, verbs, and everything I can call them, but we'll leave it at that. I'm glad you mentioned Jason Nolf, though. He did just win the 74 kilogram bracket at the Zagreb. I don't know how to pronounce anything today. At the Zagreb Open. Now that he won that, it's back-to-back golds for him at that Open. Is there any? I know he was a Final X runner-up at one point. Is there any chance he ends up making this Team USA lineup?
Not too sure.
The team in general, I should say.
I'm actually not too sure. I mean, Nolf's such a good kid. He's just anybody that remembers him from college is just, he's got so many unique attacks. He's a really tough kid to defend, but, you have to think that the guy at that weight class this coming Olympics is going to be Kyle Dake.
Yeah.
It's tough for me to think otherwise. He had a very disappointing Olympics. He made it through his first match and then got teched in the second match. And it seems to me that the issue with all the other guys at that weight in terms of the Americans, nobody is physical enough to deal with him. He's just a powerhouse, and he just bullies guys, and he's done it to Nolf, and I just can't see anybody taking Dake out of the lineup this year. I think he's going to be the guy for the US in Paris. So but I could be wrong. I mean, Nolf's been really good internationally. He obviously can compete with anybody. I just think that for now I have to lean towards Dake just because I think that he is kind of going to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder as well in terms of wanting redemption for his last Olympic performance. I think he really wants that Olympic gold. He's had such a storied wrestling career. The only thing that's missing is that Olympic gold. And then on top of it, he can win the big matches against the big guys on the international stage because he's won world titles and he's done them. I think there was a world championship a few years ago where I don't think he let up a point.
Yeah.
So I'm having trouble seeing anybody but Dake on the U.S. team this year.
Okay. Awesome. Last but not least, we talked about it last podcast, or maybe it was 2 podcasts ago, but they're starting to finalize that UFC 300 card. And Bo Nickal's he's on the main card.
I like hearing that. I think that he's kind of getting I think a lot of people understand, the executives of the UFC at least, I think they kind of understand that they have something special with him. And Bo's a pretty humble guy, but in order to kind of get where you want to be in that sport with money and fame and popularity, you kind of have to be a little outspoken. I think he's kind of embraced that slightly. But yeah, it looks like he's on the main card and he's going to be the first fight on that card.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So it looks like, I hope he stays up there because that would be big for him and it'd be big for his career. So
going up against Cody Brundage, who is 10-5, I believe, currently in UFC.
Yeah, I think they're gonna. Bo didn't fight. Did he fight at all last year? Did he fight early last year?
I forget, honestly. I'm so lost.
He fought. Let's see.
He did. You might be right, actually. I don't know if he did.
Record. He fought in July of last year. Yeah. Valentine Woodburn, and then he fought Jamie Pickett in March. Yes. So he fought twice last year. Then he said he wasn't going to fight the rest of the year due to the, his wife being pregnant, and they have had their baby. So he's on it for another fight. But I think that what they'll do with him is they'll kind of slowly introduce him to the bigger names.
Okay.
I think a lot of people are calling him to fight, Khamzat Chimaev and, some of these guys at 185 that are just killers. And I'm not saying that Bo couldn't beat Khamzat, but I think that's a pretty tall task at this point. I mean, Khamzat just went out and absolutely, dominated, what's his face? 170, former champ, Usman.
Yeah, Jesus. Should have known that.
He just dominated Usman for 3 rounds and looked really good doing it. So I think Bo's going to get there. I don't know if it'll be this year, but I would imagine he fights maybe 2 or 3 times this year after the UFC 300 is
March.
What's the date? March. Okay.
I believe it's March, but I could be wrong. I just had it popped up too.
I think that April 13th.
Yeah, April.
Okay. So April 13th, you could see him fight 2 or 3 more times, depending on how quick he gets out of the Brundage fight. Because if he gets out of there in a round with no damage, then he could fight again in June or July.
Yeah, for sure. Brundage is interesting too because he is a guy who had 128 and 22 record as a high school wrestler. He was also a 2-time NCAA qualifier at Newberry College. So he's not a total nobody. He was a team captain of that Newberry program too. That lists 1,500 total students. That's kind of wild.
Wow, that's
definitely a
pretty small place. But yeah, I mean, the thing with I've always had a lot of conversations with my friends about like the wrestling aspect of MMA, and it's tough because people who watch MMA and are like MMA heavy would say that Hamzat would probably dominate Bo in terms of wrestling. But people that have seen Bo wrestle and know who he's wrestled and the gauntlet of competition he's faced, both, in the U.S. and internationally, know that he's probably a better wrestler than Hamzat is. I think Hamzat just might be a little more suited for MMA style grappling at the moment, but I just am having a tough time seeing anybody that's going to be like a better wrestler than Bo. Even the guys that it was kind of like everybody always thought that, Khabib would wrestle somebody who was a national champion. And it's just tough because there are guys that are really good college wrestlers, and then they go into MMA and they're like, it seems like the commentators almost fixated on the fact that they were national champions at this. And
all the time, every single time there's a wrestler in there, just you hear it over and over again.
It's just kind of tough to even compare it because, I would love to see Khabib wrestle, like a really good, strictly wrestler at the time that he was at the height of his career, because everybody was like, oh, nobody can out wrestle Khabib, all that stuff. And it was like, you take punching and you take submissions out of that. Is he that good of a wrestler? But that's the thing about these really good college wrestlers and these really good international wrestlers is they also have to deal with that when they go to MMA.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see Bo wrestle somebody who has not necessarily the pedigree, or the credentials that he has in terms of wrestling and the accomplishments, but somebody who is technically very sound and is dominating, because Bo's really a great wrestler. I mean, that's obvious. And he uses that to his advantage. But now we're starting to see the rest of his game develop. I think his last fight was won by TKO. His first professional fight was won by knockout. So he's really becoming a really good, well-rounded MMA fighter. And that's exciting because we already know how solid he is from a grappling standpoint. So
yeah, definitely going to be something to watch. Plenty of time still for that, 3 months from now. Actually, almost 3 months to the day. But this weekend, like we said, number 21 Indiana comes to State College, facing off against number 1 Penn State. 1 p.m. match, Rec Hall. If you're not going to be there, BTN Plus. Any final thoughts on anything wrestling related before we sign off today?
No, but the Indiana Rutgers match tonight should be interesting. So if you're looking to get a little preview of what might happen Sunday, be sure to watch that. I don't know if that'll be on Big Ten or not, but
that's what I was going to ask. Is that one on TV?
Let's see.
Rutgers. Do a real quick check if we can get there. I would assume probably. I can't imagine there's much going on BTN tonight, but could be wrong.
Let's see. It appears that it will be on Big Ten Plus tonight.
All right. So, I mean, you buy it now, you get 2 matches of Indiana wrestling for
there you go.
Price of 1, I guess.
Yeah, it'd be a good little preview because Rutgers has a good lineup, and you'll get to see maybe what to expect on Sunday by watching the Indiana guys. So
yeah, I believe
might be worth a watch.
Somewhere in the top 15 or something like that, top 20, I forget. Regardless, if you want a little preview, do that. I hate BTN Plus. I gotta say, I despise it. I hate everything about it.
I'm kind of just over having to pay $10 subscriptions to watch sports all year. So
I'm basically paying for cable, essentially, to be honest with you. Kind of
funny how it all came full circle.
Yeah, kind of annoying, kind of pisses you off a little bit. But anyway, For me and Joey, that's another episode of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.